Boys, what y'all doing? Loki. Bo? What are you doing, Bo? Loki, look up here. Hey, Loki. Loke. What are you boys doing? So here lately, what I've been talking about is the problems that plague a lot of our people. Made videos talking about the spiritual malaise or the spiritual sickness, and I'll probably continue to do this for the foreseeable future. Hope everybody's feeling good, feeling great today, as my friend Pat says. I know I sure am. Just sitting here on the porch, waiting for the thunderstorm to roll in. Ooh, there's some lightning. I love thunderstorms. But today what I wanted to talk about is another huge problem. In some ways, maybe it's the basis for all our problems. Bo, quit whining. You ain't going out there. It's gonna start raining. And what I'm gonna talk about is the falling levels of testosterone in men. And this is a problem that we're all aware of. Although some talking heads here in the dissident right seem to minimize such a thing for some reason. I don't understand why. They just want to dismiss it as some conspiracy, yet these same people will say that we are being demographically displaced. We're going extinct. And without testosterone and the falling levels, how do you expect to have children? You know, some people dismiss this as a conspiracy. It's absolutely not. These people are fucking retarded, to be honest. But as I see it, you know, we're all aware. I read some articles last night talking about the subject. We're all aware that the testosterone levels are falling in men. I forget the percentage, but it's been fairly drastic over the last few decades. And I mean, you can just look around. If you look around in society, you see it fucking everywhere. And, you know, testosterone, which I'm not dismissing the importance of, you know, estrogen. Without estrogen, none of us would be here, but without testosterone, the same can be said, and testosterone is the hormone that perseveres through struggle. It wins fights, it wins wars, it builds empires. It also destroys civilizations when the time is right. But this falling level of testosterone is extremely disturbing to me. Extremely. Because how can you ever expect to have any sort of revolution with just a bunch of right-wing bugmen who are effeminate, who are weak, who are passive? How can you expect it? You know, I watched the video that the Woodlander put out earlier today. It's a very good video. And you know, I came up with a term. There's two types of revolution as I see it. There's what I would call the cold revolution, which is breaking away from the system. Something that, you know, the Woodlander has done fairly well, been very successful. You know, this desire to just break away from the system, to become as self-reliant as possible. And I believe that this idea has gained a lot of traction over the past decade, especially nowadays. And then, of course, you have the hot revolution. You know, I can't really speak much on this channel about, you know, the hot revolution per se. But how can you expect to have any sort of revolution without testosterone? Have a good one. It's impossible. Truly impossible. And I think the reason that all these things that promote low testosterone levels, and I'm not talking about just middle-aged and older men, it's younger men. Teenagers, men in their 20s, who are suffering from this falling testosterone, and it unleashes all this sort of myriad of various problems. Low testosterone often results in depression. You know, testosterone is I was reading one article and it said it was a hormone for spiritual reasoning. And I believe this, truly. Boys, quit fighting. I'm trying to make a video. Quit wrestling. Just for a minute. You know, it unleashes all this sort of myriad of problems. Declining birth rates. You know, women are attracted to extremes. They're attracted to grug, you could say. They want men that are capable of violence, that are strong. They don't want weak, effeminate men. And you know, even here in the dissident right, we have our own share of right-wing bug men. People that I would suggest, you know, they just produce stuff talking about intellectual things, philosophy, types of government. I would suggest to these guys, you know, go outside. Lift some weights. Get laid, if you can. And I'm not surprised that a lot of women don't want nothing to do with these types. I imagine if I was a woman, I wouldn't, to be honest. There's nothing there to appeal to the fairer sex. So what is causing the lower levels of testosterone? As I see it, there are two things. One is environment. We see that there's lots of factors. Modern living is not conducive, I don't believe, to a high testosterone level. At least how most people do it. So it's the environment and all the various, you know, microplastics are a big thing I've heard people talk about. Something that I want to read you a little later. Birth control in the water supply, another big thing. You know, some of these environmental things, very hard to get away from. I mean, you know, and I'm not an expert on this, but I was reading a while back, you know, people talk a lot about microplastics and how it's in, they're fucking everywhere. They're in everything. Bo, simmer down. They're in everything. And, you know, one of the steps you can take is to not drink anything out of plastic. And this is something that I try very hard to do. I try to drink out of glass. Got a bunch of glass jars in there. Mason jars. Drink water from them. But you know, it's about impossible to even get away, you know, sometimes. Sometimes it's impossible to get away from that. Boys, let me put these dogs inside. I'll be right back. You know, I was talking about microplastics. I mean, look at this shit. I went by Sonic earlier when I went to, after I lifted weights. Got me a cheeseburger, some french fries, got me a milkshake. I'm sure there's microplastics in this shit. Hell, I'm drinking through a plastic straw. And another thing about microplastics I recall reading a few months ago is that a lot of what's in our system comes from clothing. I mean, any article of clothing that has polyester, you wash it, you dry it, microplastics. You know, you can about drive yourself mad thinking about it. You truly can. You know, and there's things we can do, I believe, to minimize our ingestion or our exposure to such things, but unfortunately the world's truly polluted. Let me bring up another thing about the environment. Give me just 1 second here. Alright, so what I'm going to read to you next was a post I found on Telegram. I seen the Woodlander had reposted it, but it's by a guy whose channel is called Tweed Supreme, and I'll put links to it in the box below to his channel. Here's what he has to say. Of all my writings so far, this is the most important and sinister aspect of Western decline. The issue, I feel, is particularly grave because it's certainly the most overlooked in terms of significance. I'm referring to this shocking decline of testosterone levels in men. Clearly, this is something we all know to be true to one degree or another. But has anyone actually looked at some of the data? According to even the most conservative of estimates, I could find, testosterone levels in men have declined by roughly 20% in the last 20 years. It's reported to fall around 1% per year and has been doing so for decades. That means the average 22-year-old lad has the same testosterone levels as a 67-year-old man in the year 2000. It means that it's likely your testosterone levels will be half of that of your father and significantly less than your grandfather. Think about that for a minute.
Get the fuck off her, motherfucker.
If that doesn't terrify you, then I really don't know what will. Oh wait, yes I do. The problem is being caused largely by the water we're drinking. There is literally estrogen in the drinking water that they can't filter out that comes from the various contraceptive pills that your local strong, independent women are pissing down the toilet, which by the way are literally causing fish to be born with both male and female genitalia. We have guys doing 4-hour streams on metaphysics of power, elite theory, and all the other facets of the decline and rise of civilizations, all while sipping on a glass of estrogen and wondering why another Caesar hasn't poked his head up. You couldn't make it up. I'm not having a dig. I love these types of streams and conversations, but can we talk about this? Who is responsible for this mass crime? To add insult to injury, alongside all of the estrogen-dominant hormones and chemicals in the water they're poisoning your body and your future with, foods and chemicals we use on a daily basis also contain endocrine, disrupting chemicals that interrupt the homeostasis and hormone production of healthy people. Do some research on this if you haven't already. This cannot continue. It must not only end, but be reversed. In order to do this, steps must be taken immediately. This is seriously high priority in my opinion. I will be doing all in my power to promote the production of testosterone in my own body and take steps to protect my family from this evil. I suggest anyone reading this with an ounce of self-respect left does the same thing. I would really like to see a well-coordinated legal challenge on people that knowingly contribute to this disaster, and I think this should really come from somewhere on the right for obvious reasons. Something tells me that if this can be reversed and men can develop healthy levels of testosterone once more and allow all people to live free without chemical warfare being waged on their body on a daily basis, many of our problems will go away. You want to learn long-term fix-all strategy? This could very well be it. Certainly it's a solid foundation for any significant change. Anyway, what do I know? I just thought it was probably the most horrifying realization I've had in recent years and thought I would share. So now, let's talk about solutions. I just went over the environmental problem, and you know there's things we can do to minimize this chemical warfare, as the author just mentioned. But the biggest thing that we can control is how we live. There's not a whole lot we can do about the environment, but we can control how we live. I'm in my mid-30s, and a couple of weeks ago I had to go take a physical for my job, drive a truck for a living, and I'm in remarkably good health. Very good health. You know, I'm astonished sometimes considering as many drugs and as much meth as I did back in my 20s, that I'm in such good health. I have 20/20 vision in both eyes. My blood pressure is extremely low. Not so low, you know, that it's dangerous or whatever, but I've always had quite low blood pressure. You know, I don't get sick. I got the coof back in November of 2020. Had no problems with it. None at all, really. And didn't go to a doctor. I haven't been to a doctor probably in a decade or so, other than the physical. And I almost forgot, earlier this spring I got into poison ivy quite bad. Out on a fishing trip one day. Had to go get a shot. Poison ivy I'm fairly allergic to. But I'm not allergic to many things. Good health. Never broken a bone. Never had any surgeries. Testosterone levels, I've never been tested, but I'd imagine they're pretty high. I mean, I have no problems. No problems at all with anything. I'm very lucky. Blessed, you could say. But you know, I do things to take care of my testosterone levels. I work out, lift weights. I've had a few people ask me in the past to make a workout video, and I don't know, I do pretty conventional stuff. I will tell you what I do. I work out every other day. Like I worked out today, earlier. Take tomorrow off. I'll go back to it Saturday. And each workout I do 2 muscle groups. Focus on 2. I will do biceps and back and lats one day. The next day I'll do chest and triceps. And then the day after that, workout day after that, I will do legs and shoulders. Now, biceps, and sometimes I will mix it up a little bit. I'll do biceps and triceps, just arms one day. And then the other day I will do chest and back and lats. The leg day is very important. Do not neglect your legs. Do not neglect leg day. That is the largest group of muscles. They produce the most testosterone when you work them out. And then on the 4th day, I'll do miscellaneous stuff. Every day I'll do a little bit of abs. You know, I'm not interested in having some sort of 6-pack. I don't really, all I want to do for working out, I don't do it to look good. I just do it to be strong. I do forearm curls every day. I do calf raises every day. I want them Popeye forearms. I want to be able to snatch a motherfucker up if I need to. Another thing I'd like to add is to get outdoors. Get some vitamin D on your skin. Get out in the sun. Take your shirt off. Go hiking. Go swimming. You know, I do a lot of fishing. Fair amount of hiking. And when I go fishing, I don't do like most people. I don't own a bass boat. I don't own a kayak. And when I go fishing, I like to go in the rivers up in the mountains. And when I go up there, I don't go to the common holes that everybody fishes at. I like to hike away. I like to get away from everything. I want to go to the remote fishing holes. That's what I want to see. I have a lot of success there because people aren't willing to walk 2 or 3 miles up the river to get to these places. People are lazy. You know, there's a lot of things you can do to help it. And I wade through the river. I've got a pair of waders with the felt soles. Because the rivers that I fish at, you know, they're rocky bottom rivers. Can be treacherous sometimes, but those felt soles get a good grip on things. You know, it keeps you mentally sharp, keeps you in shape. It's good for you. Another thing about a low level of testosterone is men are not confrontational. They're too passive. Be confrontational. I'm not saying go bark up every single tree, but if someone gives you shit, you give it back. Give it right back. Even worse. But you know, depression, you know, huge symptom, huge sign, I should say, of low testosterone. So it's important to work out. And you know, I mean, going to the gym, though, doesn't just make you a man automatically. There's a channel on here, Johnny Groob. I'll put a link to his channel in the box below as well. He does what he calls blue collar fitness, and he also talks about a lot of other subjects. A very interesting channel. He's not big on going to the gym. He's not big on being sore. And see, for myself, I'm not a big guy. I'm only 5'9", and I weigh about 166 pounds right now. Back in the winter, I got up to 175, but during the winter, I'm not doing as much outside. My job, even though I drive a truck, I'm fairly active. But his channel's really interesting because he has a unique approach, I believe, to fitness. Very wise, you know. He's up in his 50s. I believe he's 54, he said. And he doesn't go to the gym anymore. He just does farmer carries. He does stuff around the house, you know. Strong guy, smart guy. His channel's well worth checking out. But you know, I'm not a big guy. And I'm not going to try to, you know, get huge. I'm all about functionality. And you know, even though I've lost about 9 pounds or so since the winter, I'm stronger than ever. The other day, maxed out bench pressing. I got 245. I know it's not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but I think that's decent for a guy that weighs 165. And the thing I do is I always try to push myself. You know, there's a lot of days. 2 days a week, I have to work out when I get off work. I'll be out driving 10, 11 hours a day. And like I said, it's fairly active. It's not just driving a semi. I have to load things, unload things, move stuff. You know, there's a lot of days that I don't feel like working out whenever I get back from Georgia. But I force myself to do these things. And it pays off. It truly does. You know, it's rewarding. It's good for you. What else is there? There's something else I'm forgetting. I always try to push myself. I try to do a little more weight. And you know, there's some days I have that's off days. Everybody has that. But some sort of exercise, 1 or 2 exercises that I try to do more weight or more reps. Try to push myself. You have to. I mean, there's no sense in, you know, a lot of people talk about working out, they hit a plateau. If you hit a plateau, it's because your body, your routine's stale. You're doing the same things. You're not pushing yourself. You have to push yourself. The other thing is diet we could talk about. My diet is nothing special, really. I've never had any problems with being overweight. My family, we're all tall and thin usually, fairly fit. I ended up short though because I took after my dad's grandfather. He was only 5'7". My younger brother and my father, they're both over 6 foot tall. I'm a manlet, I guess you could say. But I've never let that stop me. My grandfather never let it stop him. My grandfather was my dad's dad could be a very ruthless guy. He shot people. Heard he's killed people. And my dad said he had no problem picking up women. He was a very handsome guy. He didn't let I'm not 6 foot, I can't get women because I'm not 6 foot tall. Shut the fuck up. You're just making excuses. You're just being a pussy. I hate that shit. Quit fucking whining. Do something about it. You know, going back to diet though. Didn't mean to get off on that tangent. I see something I like, I eat it. I eat a lot of meat. A lot of beef, a lot of chicken, a lot of pork. I eat some fish. I eat raw meat on occasion. Every now and then, raw egg. I don't do this a lot, but if I go out somewhere, I always get my steak rare or medium rare. Raw fish. Raw milk is very important, I believe. Unfortunately, I don't have a steady source for that right now. I'm trying to acquire one though. But of course, you know, I don't follow just a carnivore diet. I've heard some friends speak highly of, you know, the carnivore diet, but I mean, I eat bread, I eat pasta, I eat vegetables, I eat fruit. I even eat dessert. I even eat candy sometimes. Occasionally I drink soda, unfortunately. I know it's not good for you, but I like it. But I mainly drink water, juice, or milk. You know, I think the food pyramid that we're taught from our elementary school years is very, very incorrect. Instead of grain being at the bottom, I think meat should. Gotta have your meat. Is there anything else that I can think of? You know, this low testosterone levels in men, like I said earlier, huge myriad of problems arise from this. A lot of people don't like to talk about it. I don't know why. And you know, for men that's my age, or in their mid or late 20s, who go to a testosterone doctor and find out that they have a low test score, You know, I think a lot of it has to do with how you are raised and how you grow up. It's environment, it's genetics, but it's also, you know, how you grow up. I grew up as any boy should. I grew up running around outside in the woods, playing in the creek, getting dirty. I played sports. I played baseball and football, and you know, I hate sports ball and the sports ball worship we see today. It's just completely stupid. But sports are very important, I believe, for kids and teenagers. Hell, even when I got out of high school, a lot of weekends during the fall and winter, we'd go down to the football field, practice field. We'd play, they'd be 10 or 11 of us on each side. We'd play tackle football, no pads. And I loved it. Felt alive, you know. And it's dangerous. Plenty of times, a couple of times I got a chipped tooth, came back home with a black eye, busted mouth. Loved it though. You know, danger makes things interesting, makes you feel alive. That's something I think a lot of men neglect, you know. Confrontation. You know, a lot of men are afraid of confrontation. They're afraid of hurting people's feelings or whatever. You gotta put that behind you, you know. Is there anything else I'd like to add? Take care of your testosterone. Take good care of it. Because if more people address this problem, I think, as Tweed Supreme had said, you know, other things perhaps could solve itself, or at least become in a position where they would be more easily solvable. And it's like I said, how can you expect to have any sort of revolution, whether it be the cold revolution or the hot one, with a bunch of effeminate pussies? Can't do it. You'll get smashed. And that's another thing I'd like to add. Sorry, this video's rambling, but you know, a lot of these guys will go to a doctor and they'll prescribe them some testosterone cream. What you've got to do is you've got to minimize the roadblocks for your testosterone production. I don't think, you know, these testosterone creams, this shit don't help. I read an article last night, I think only like 15% of people experience, you know, positive outcomes from it. It's how you grow up. It's how active you are. It's how tough you are. That's what testosterone is. And that's what creates it. Struggle and strife. So if you grew up in a bubble, I hate to be negative, but you might be screwed. But take care of your testosterone. Thank y'all for watching. Bye-bye.